What conspiracy theory do you 100% believe is true? It's not really a conspiracy theory, but the fact that Medicare covers our old people in the US when the effects of bad habits usually surface means that private insurance companies have zero incentive to cover long-term health things like regular doctor visits, preventative care, nutrition, etc. The results of a lifetime of poor health are covered by taxpayers. This is why governments, not health insurers or care providers, have to run anti-tobacco ads and such. I believe the system is rigged to keep people poor. I work in medical collections and deal with people that make like $1 too much to qualify for Medicaid, get real insurance, and then get stuck with a $10K bill. Food for thought: many preventable diseases, like type 2 diabetes and most dental issues, often arise before the age where Medicare kicks in. Yes, but things like heart disease and cancer, the leading causes of death in the US, can be screened for before they become life-threatening, but are not covered as well as they probably should be. Part of the reason is that insurers won't be paying the costs for most of the treatments. You will be though. The Truth campaign ads were deliberately corny to make anti-smoking efforts look uncool or otherwise make people tune them out. Tobacco companies were basically forced to fund them to satisfy settlement terms, so the motive is obviously there. It's also a way to skirt restrictions on advertising cigarettes directly, if they are clever enough. I'm fully convinced of this because of one ad I remember seeing a few times before it was quickly pulled. It was basically 25+ seconds of colorful mascots singing a catchy jingle about smoking with two guys at the end quickly commenting on how silly it was. Couple that with the Truth campaign attacking vaping as just as dangerous or worse than smoking, and not as a viable way to quit smoking, and you see our industry slandering a competitor addiction cure with an ad campaign disguised as a public service penance. Except tobacco companies increasingly control the vape market, and were behind much of the research promoting vaping as a safer alternative. I get so tired of people telling me how healthy vaping is. If it's not oxygen, it isn't supposed to be in your lungs. The theory that the pharmaceutical companies are hiding the cure for cancer for money. There isn't just one cure though. Cancer comes in various forms. See, the problem with this is that you're simplifying what cancer is, and I don't mean to come off as attacking you specifically. It really is a systemic issue. See, cancer is an umbrella term for hundreds of different diseases. Not every disease responds to the same treatment. Much like not every bacteria is killed by the same antibiotic. And so some cancers are much easier to handle vs other that are nearly impossible. In some ways we do have cures for cancer. Surgery, chemotherapy, irradiation. The problem with cancer is stopping it from reoccurring when we've cured it once. Because unlike a bacterium or virus that is from the outside world, it can come back no matter what you do simply due to genetics and immune system problems. Also, won't these companies make like trillions of dollars on a cure? George H.W. Bush was somehow involved in the JFK assassination. Officially Bush wasn't in the CIA at the time. However, a memo from the desk of J. Edgar Hoover stated that the FBI briefed a CIA agent by the name of George Bush the day after the assassination. Also, Bush, despite being asked directly, has declined to state where he was on November 23, 1963 other than in Texas. Anyone who was alive at the time can tell you exactly where they were when they heard the news, much like people who were alive for 9/11 or Pearl Harbor can. And why was Bush chosen by Ford to head the CIA if he had no experience with the agency? Because he had been a CIA asset for years. You've read Family of Secrets? Totally on board with this one. Way too many weird things that don't add up. Most memories that people aged 20 to 30 have of where they were when 9/11 happened are misremembered. A dude invented porcelain razor blades that never needed sharpening. Big Razor bought the patent and buried it to make sure people had to keep buying razor blades. Ceramic knives still need sharpening, and their edges are more brittle because ceramic is much harder than steel. Because ceramic is much harder than steel, you can't sharpen it to such an edge as a steel blade. This is why we don't make knives out of tool steel. Not to mention that ceramic blades wouldn't bend, and that's kinda a requirement for many blades. Usually knife blades aren't even that hard in the grand scheme of things. I like the top end German knives are usually around 58-ish on the Rockwell hardness scale, with Japanese knives coming in a bit higher at 65-ish. We have many metals that go much higher on the scale, all of the way up to and exceeding 100, but those don't make for great knives because they're brittle, and a knife needs to be strong, but flexible. Car companies GM, Tulsa, etc. intentionally deride and spread FUD about public transit and fund absurd ventures they know will never take off. See Hyperloop, because mass transit adoption hurts their bottom line. There's a documentary Who Killed the Electric Car that argued the same point. I also read that auto companies early on killed ethanol as a fuel additive in preference of cheaper leaded fuel, knowing it was less effective and dangerous. I worked in public policy in Houston. We had a transportation committee where we got all the big wigs on private and government sides to figure out issues. Some of the biggest pushers for mass transit were the big car dealership owners and car suppliers. They didn't like traffic like everyone else and realized a solution needs to happen. They also will still make car sales because, well, it's Texas. JFK's assassination was an inside job. That's about it though. I think conspiracy theories can be destructive toward society. I saw the film of it, and I've been to Dallas. It all happened outside. I think there was no assassin. JFK's head just did that. It was the ultimate inside job. Another theory: a time traveler went back in time to witness JFK's assassination, brought his camera to document it, and a bullet unknowingly comes out of the camera and kills JFK. JFK's assassination was legit. RFK's assassination, his brother though, was completely set up. All the small details and the last minute plan changes, and the incompetent security point towards it. People felt threatened by RFK's charisma and his friendly relationship with social rights groups. MLK was assassinated by the US government. Didn't the FBI lose a civil case to his widow alleging exactly that James Earl Ray was a hitman for the feds? Yes, but it's worth noting that in a civil case, the burden of proof is lowered from beyond a reasonable doubt to a preponderance of the evidence. So basically, they just had to convince the finder of fact that it was likelier than not. It's not like they really proved anything. I thought this said James Earl Jones at first, and I was about to be really confused. I'm 100% on board this one and the CIA killing Kennedy. The three-letter agencies don't hold American soil or Americans in any kind of different esteem than foreign enemies. Mattress Firm is a money laundering firm. I've been saying this for years. Not just Mattress Firm but all the mattress stores. They open. They hold huge going out of business sales. They close. They open up again 6 blocks down the road. Rinse and repeat. I don't know if it's money laundering, but there has to be some scam going on there. So that would be illegal. But business is going under BC of the ridiculous quotes of how much time people spend in bed. Plausible. Mattress stores are the get rich quick schemes, except there's a brick and mortar store. Art galleries, also. Huge money laundering scams, the whole lot of them. And they hide all the money between the mattresses. There is very little to no gold in Fort Knox. Is it because it was almost all spent, or never been that much in the first place? Probably never there. The US government would never allow rumors about a fort full of gold to become so widespread if there was actually a lot of gold there. If there ever was a large amount of gold at Fort Knox, it was probably moved away decades, maybe centuries ago. The bullion depository has only existed since the 30s. They believe in this conspiracy. What did you expect? Facts and knowledge. It doesn't really matter in a way. The value of money is no longer connected in any way to gold or any other material. Lotteries are traps for time travelers. I won't say this isn't true, but if I was a time traveler, there are better ways to make money. Buy stuff that is cheap today, travel into the future where it's expensive and sell it, buy something cheap then, and bring it back, and say you invented a new item and rack in the money from just that one or two things. Don't do it too much as that could raise suspicions too. Yeah, just buy a few $100s in each tech stock from the 90s. Boom. Billionaire and no lottery. Have to make sure you have period money. I mean, you could just work a basic job and make enough in a month to be set. Sell a synthetic diamond from the future. that Russian bots have been spreading anti-vax information as a way to divide people and make Americans weak in order to undermine American democracy. I'll piggyback this to say I believe they're also involved in the current growing divide about the Roe v. Wade arguments. I don't see much evidence to show that the recent changes have significant public backing, but there must be a lot of funding to get the new laws passed at the state level. That one could also be picked down to religion and values. America is slowly becoming less traditional and an older population would call back on traditional ways. It's repeated a lot throughout history recently on a range of issues. But who knows anymore? Governments spread wild and crazy conspiracy theories to disca conspiracy theorists and make them look like lunatics. That way, when someone actually finds a real conspiracy, people will just go, oh, it's one of those crazy guys. I just heard in one story in this, where someone got a guy to be the political face behind this crazy dry Alabama movement, to make the opposing political party look like nutters. You know, I actually believed for a long time that Trump was working with Hillary's campaign to make sure she was elected by being a buffoon. Imagine my surprise when he was elected. Didn't South Park do something like this? Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon are colluding with both the NSA for continued breaches of privacy and the regulatory agencies to keep them in anti-competitive practices. A lot of people think that private companies and the state are opposing forces, but nothing can be further from the truth. They both reinforce each other. The worst part is that we have proof of this. Thank you, Edward Snowden. Asked Alman was right. Those people must not realize that our government is filled with people who were formerly on the board of directors of major corporations and go work for the companies they used to be in charge of regulating as soon as they leave office.